is about toxic masculinity. Something that I've heard endless amounts of bullshit about online, but I reached my breaking point whenever I saw that Girl Defined, my favorite YouTube channel, posted a video this week about their interpretation of toxic masculinity. So I did some digging online and found a lot of really contradictory things to what they say that I'm gonna bring into this video, along with my own opinions about what I think it means to have toxic masculinity in our society. But let's start with Girl Defined, because they're always so good. That's their intro. That's how their video starts now. I don't know. You know what? I think I can do it better.
Hey guys, it's Bethany and Kristen here. Thanks so much for joining us today on this very random weather day. Here in San Antonio, the weather is literally like it comes in cold fronts. Like,
I know this is random and nitpicky, but it's one of my biggest pet peeves when people start a YouTube video and just go on about nothing forever. Like, what are we talking about here? The weather? Really?
It's like we were swimming on Saturday and we're wearing jackets outside today. Like, so weird.
Oh my god, it's so weird. So the one in the yellow shirt, I don't remember their names, whatever. The one in the yellow shirt was going on about her and her husband and how they had a conversation at the dinner table about toxic masculinity and how it actually really bothered him because he was trying so hard to be a decent guy and felt like he was met with nothing but negativity online.
And he's like, you know, as a guy who's really striving to do the right thing, it's really hard for me when I see these tweets and I see these comments and I hear these things that are very, very negative about manhood. And he's like, it's so hard because here I am, a guy who's genuinely trying to do the right thing towards women.
Now I know what you guys are thinking, that since this is me reacting to Girl Defined, that I'm just going to be shitting on them this entire video, but I'm actually not going to, because shockingly, they say a few things that I actually agree with. A broken clock is right twice a day, right? And we can acknowledge that. So they're actually making some semi-decent points in this video, but still a lot of really bad ones. So don't worry, those are coming too.
And as we were talking, we had to acknowledge the fact that masculinity and manhood have been used for so much evil.
The wording there kind of bothers me a little bit because I just feel like people in general can be shitty. Like, human beings can be pretty awful things. If you take a step back and look at all the shit we've done throughout history, it's pretty bad. The wording saying that masculinity has been used for evil instead of just saying people do evil things, I disagree with, because you can literally point at anything and say, oh, my hammer over there is great, but it can be used to bash someone's head in, and that's bad. Hammers can be used for evil. Literally anything I look at around me, any person you see, any quality trait, or anything in a person, you can say is something that could be used for evil, but people focus so much on being a man and masculinity that it makes it seem as though those things are inherently bad, which is just not the case.
God created men for so much more. He created men to be men who use their strength, who use their leadership, who use their influence to not hurt others, but to protect.
Strength, leadership, and influence are all terms that they used to describe men. This is the root of the problem, I think, for more than one reason. I think, first of all, these are qualities that can describe women just as well, and they're also things that if you are putting this expectation on men for all of them to be strong, all of them are leaders, then it puts them in a position to feel like they're obligated to do these things, otherwise they're not a man. Also, the way we define things like the word strong or what it actually means to be a man, I think these are really subjective things, and I'll get into that later.
A phrase that I've seen a lot lately, you guys have, but this phrase, toxic masculinity, has been around for a while, but I think it's really trending right now because there's a lot of things that are bringing it to the surface.
So the girl in the yellow shirt, again, sorry, I don't know names, is about to give her interpretation of what the definition of toxic masculinity is. It's not the worst definition I heard, but it's definitely not as inclusive as I wanted it to be.
Masculinity that's used in a way that is selfish and harmful. So using masculinity in a way that is really hurting other people rather than protecting them.
So according to my sources on Google, the definition of toxic masculinity is a practice that legitimizes powerful men's dominant position in society and justifies the subordination of the common male population and women and other marginalized ways of being a man. This is something that they don't touch on. It's not just the way men treat women, it's the way men treat other men and the expectations that society as a whole places on men. Another definition says, toxic masculinity is a narrow and repressive description of man manhood, designating manhood as defined by violence, sex, status, and aggression. It's the cultural idea of manliness, where strength is everything, while emotions are a weakness, where sex and brutality are yardsticks by which men are measured, while supposedly feminine traits, which can range from emotional vulnerability to simply not being hypersexual, are the means by which your status as a man can be taken away. And this is something that they really don't focus on. They don't focus on the effect that this has on other men. But I have a lot of problems with this particular definition, so let me break this down. It's the cultural ideal of manliness, where strength is everything while emotions are a weakness. I think this applies to more than just men. I can't tell you how many times I have shown a more emotional or vulnerable side of myself on the internet and have been bombarded by people telling me that I am weak for doing so. Now, I don't take offense to these comments because I know myself now, and 10 years ago I was the type of person that was very reclusive whenever I was going through things, and to a degree I still do that a little bit, but I'm a lot better, where I never wanted to show anybody my emotions because I thought it was embarrassing. I was ashamed to be in that mental state, and I didn't want anybody to know what I was going through. So I would hide and try to process all of that on my own, which is actually really unhealthy for people to do, which is why I say it takes so much strength to be vulnerable and express those emotions to people around you. So this is not something that is just applied to men, which is part of the reason why I have an issue with the word toxic masculinity. This is just toxic behavior, where sex and brutality are yardsticks by which men are measured. I don't really know how I feel about brutality. I definitely agree with sex. I know a lot of men have the locker room talk where they, brag about this girl or that girl. My main issue with that in particular is that there are a lot of guys out there who aren't super sexual. They don't want to talk about that kind of thing, but in order to fit in, they exaggerate, they feel the need to make up stories, because if they don't, if they're honest about what they're doing in their life, they might be viewed as less of a man by their peers. It's definitely not a trait that is purely just for men. Some men aren't sexual, some men are. Some women aren't, some women are. It's just a human thing. I don't know why people are so set on putting people in little boxes and defining gender roles. I think it's really stupid. Just searching the definition of masculinity is frustrating. It says, handsome, muscled, and driven. He's a prime example of masculinity. Like, handsome? Is handsome really a trait of being masculine? If we're talking about size and strength, there are a lot of really big guys out there that are super strong that are definitely not handsome, and I don't think anyone's ever questioned their masculinity. It's just kind of a weird definition. Antonyms: femininity. Well, let's click on that and see what that has to say. Qualities or attributes regarded as characteristic of women. Synonyms: womanliness, feminineness, womanhood, womanly. What are these definitions? Womanly qualities, feminine qualities. So basically the definition of femininity is just being a woman. It's woman. Feminineness. Stupid.
Is masculinity the problem? Is manhood a problem? Do we need to get rid of that? And
Are men the problem?
Are men the problem? I don't think it is.
Yay! Thank you. Something they said that I agree with. Holy shit.
I think it's the sin, the rebellion against God's good design for manhood, that's really the problem.
And they ruined it. God's good design for manhood? Are you serious? Have you read the passages in the Bible that talk about men and women? It's really not that favorable towards women.
What about God's good design for masculinity? And what about the men who are genuinely striving to honor God?
Well, I hope the men aren't genuinely trying to follow the Bible, because if they did, we'd be in a lot of trouble. I mean, the Bible actually says that women are property to their husband or their father if they're not married, and if they get taken in as a prisoner of war, then they're that person's property. That's fine. The Bible also says, I think in Timothy, that a woman has to be quiet and submissive. I do not permit a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man. She is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first and then Eve. That's in the Bible. It says that. Women are definitely inferior if you are trying to be super biblical.
And we see the evil that is happening. If we've been sinned against by men, if we've had awful things happen, we can step back and say, yes, there are men who are embracing a distorted version of masculinity, of manhood. That is not God's good design.
I mean, God is never at fault with people like this. He created all of us in his own image, right? He created everything perfectly, and he is all-knowing and all-powerful, right? So everything that he does is intentional, except for the sin. That's our fault. We ate the fruit, Again, a woman's fault. Well, Brianna tweeted me on Twitter an article that disagrees with them. I'm a Christian girl and I'm not a feminist because God did not intend for women to be equals. Now, I think most people upon first seeing this article would be triggered. They'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe that she's saying women are inferior. But It's really difficult to get mad at people like this because they are following what the Bible actually says. If you are someone who is super religious, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too by cherry picking through all the bullshit, which I don't agree with. So this person, as insulting as some of these things might be in this article, is actually following the Bible. I do not believe God meant for women and men to be equal. She talks about Genesis, where God created a man and then a woman. And it does say things like we are to submit to our husbands. A husband or man is to be the head of the household as Christ is to the church. A man is to love a woman so deeply that represents how he loves himself. And then she says if we were all equal, we wouldn't need each other, we wouldn't need God. So you see, I'm not a feminist and it's okay, but I really, really love how she ends this article by saying, to feminists and those that are not, you are allowed to believe whatever you wish, but have evidence to back it up, says the Christian girl who believes in God. So you remember earlier in this video whenever I said it's pretty subjective how people view men and masculinity, what it means to be a real man? I personally view someone being a real man if they are loyal, if they are kind, if they are loving, if they're the kind of person that you can count on. They're reliable. If you're looking for a partner, you can see that man being an amazing father, amazing husband there for you when you really need them the most. I don't care what a guy looks like. I don't care if he is on the cover of some kind of Abercrombie and Fitch model. Is that still a thing? I don't know. If they are cheating, if they are disrespectful to women, if they're mean to people in general, if they're mean to animals, that just is so gross to me. And I don't view that guy as a man. I dated a lot of shitty guys in my past. You guys know that. Unfortunately, you probably know way too much about that, and we're not going to talk about it right now. So I assumed that moving on from that, finding someone who is actually really, really good to me and has all of those qualities that I listed before, that people seeing that would be super happy for me, right? I finally found a good one. Well, they weren't. And the reason that I say this is that I get a lot of comments on the videos that I post with my boyfriend on my second channel, youtube.com/JacquelineVlogs. You should check it out, link in the description. I get a lot of comments on those videos. I get comments on my Instagram photos with him, and they're all by other men. You seem to be attracted to very feminine men. She can't handle a bad boy, lol. I always wonder what people think when they leave these comments. Do they think that I read them and I'm like, oh, you mean a bad boy like you? Take me now. And it reminds me so much of that scene in South Park where all the guys just kind of turn into these super cavemen type of like, oh, man needs woman.
Now if you just hold the rock like this, you... Yeah, here, it's like if you put your thumb on this side. I'm showing her. Yeah, just let me show her real quick how to put the thumb in.
That's what I imagine when I see these comments. I see just a bunch of guys being like, no, I'm a more manly man. You need to be with me, woman. This dude is gay. Really? He isn't gay? Keep telling yourself that.
You put a spin on it by holding it here and... Yeah, and then you can actually hold it like this. Now...
OMG, another beta male. What the fuck? Liberal women really like those skinny emo looking weaklings? OMG.
Wait, what were we doing again?
Which brings me to my final point, is that I think the worst part of this whole conversation on toxic masculinity is the way men treat other men. And my biggest problem with the Girl Defined video is that they never bring that up. Stop doing this to each other. Stop shaming each other. Be the guy in the room that stands up for someone. If you're in a locker room and all your friends are picking on someone because they're not having sex as much as you or at all, be the person that's like, hey, leave him alone. Who gives a shit what he does in his private life? At the end of the day, when it comes to this particular issue, I can't do as much as men can because I'm not in that locker room setting. I can't lead by example in this case. So this is my call to all the guys watching to stop putting pressure on everyone else to be this some kind of weird ideal of what it is to be a man. It's gross and weird. Stop it. And I know there's a lot of guys watching this who have that pressure put on them, and I know because I get a lot of these messages from guys on Patreon. I see a lot of tweets. I see a lot of messages from people that are saying, I hate the way that people expect me to be a man in this sense or in that sense, and I feel so bad that all of this pressure is put on guys to not show emotion, that they have to pretend like they're more macho than they really want to be. And then it's confusing. It fools people to think that that's the norm because everyone's kind of acting like this, when in reality, not many people are actually living their life like that. It's just an act. Whew, I'm going on a rant. I need to stop. But I want you guys to let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section below. Let's continue the conversation. I feel like there's a lot of other things that people could say. If you agree with me, that's great. If you disagree with me, even better. I would love to hear opposing points of view. So Don't be shy. I could continue ranting all day, and I will a little bit. I'm making a follow-up video that will be exclusive to only people on Patreon, so if you have not already signed up, please click the link in the description below and support me on Patreon. It's so meaningful to have a community of people that support me over there because YouTube is a really, really difficult place right now for people who talk about anything controversial, which is basically my entire channel. So I am only here thanks to the people supporting me on Patreon. And I hope you enjoyed the extra video I post for you on there exclusively. And also before I go, I want to let you guys know that there's a link in the description you can click out and fill out what your email address is and your closest major city, because I'm traveling a lot, and if I happen to be in your area, I would love to let everyone in that area know so we can all hang out. Also, I might be going on tour, so this will help me figure out where the most demand is, so please click the link in the description below if you want to meet me in person. All right, I think I'm done promoting everything I need to promote in this video. Sorry if it was a lot. I know the video was kind of heavy, but I hope that you still were able to enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!